Like with any other technology, you have to be practical when you start with Edge AI. Bringing AI at the edge has a lot of promise, but also requires a lot of considerations. Mahmood has an extensive experience in integrating IoT with digital twins, with AI at the edge, and we'll talk about use cases, the importance of focusing on ROI. We'll talk about expectations with AI at the edge, the business considerations as well when it comes to hardware, infrastructure, security, brownfield, greenfield, lots of very interesting topics. I hope that at the end of the episode, you'll be a bit more prepared to be ready for Edge AI. And if you like this episode, do not forget to subscribe, give us a like, and leave a comment, because that's really what we're looking for here, an engagement with you. Hi everyone, this is the IoT Show. I'm Olivier, your host, and today we will talk about the practical use of Edge AI. And for that, we have someone who has a business hat as much as of a technical one, and this is Mahmood. Mahmood, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Olivia, for having me. So
Of
I think
course.
it's good for me to introduce myself first to the audience.
Let's do
So
this.
I'm Mahmoud. I am the regional business manager at Softeq company. It's a tech-oriented company that we are working on, and I have around 14, I would say 15 years experience in the IoT and the cloud environment and industries. And recently, I have the focus on digital twin, edge AI, and see what we can do with these technologies.
Yeah, and I was mentioning you have more of a business hat. Sometimes we just bring very technical people here, but technology evolves and has to be used in a practical way to achieve business goals. And that's why I wanted to bring you over. And we talked when we met at Embedded World recently in Nuremberg. And I was like, yeah, we need to have an IoT show with Mahmoud to talk about this practical aspect of things. We both were realizing that AI was everywhere on all the booth at Embedded World. So everyone in the
Indeed.
embedded slash IoT world is considering bringing AI at the edge. But before we get into what would be the use cases, the focus you need to have as a business decision maker when it comes to adopting Edge AI, let's clarify one thing. What we were seeing at Embedded World was not generative AI. We were talking about different types of AI, right?
Absolutely. So, first thing to clarify, I have also the technical hat. So, try my best, as we discussed, to not bring that technical person inside. So, I try my best. So, and you're totally right. There are a lot of buzz around AI use cases and especially Edge AI. And every time I was talking to the people, there is a misunderstanding around AI. And so many people, they thought that Edge AI, it's only limited to generative AI, and they thought that we need to implement LLM, for example, algorithm or models on the edge, and then we call this Edge AI. So the answer is no. Edge AI is not limited only to Gen AI and LLMs and this kind of buzzwords around these technologies, but Edge AI it's more, it cover more use cases of AI, more algorithms, and we can see that there is a lot of use cases that we can derivative from this technology, which is not even Gen AI.
Yeah. Are you seeing, with the customers you're working with, you understand technology as much as business. What are the things that you're seeing that is the first, I would say, comment you would make to customers when they're saying we need to do Edge AI? Like, what is the conversation you want to have with them first?
So first of all, I need to ask them, okay, you want to have the Edge AI, but do you have money? So this is the first question, as I mentioned. And yeah, the question is, I asked them, okay, this is a good technology. This is just like a luxury car, but do you really need this luxury car in your, I don't know, going to school for 10 minutes or doing some short commute? So it's really important to understand the use case you want to use the Edge AI, because Edge AI is a big world, and it's a big world and it's big word, because you need to understand the use case you want to implement. So I asked them, do you really need that? Is it something you want to you must have, or is good to have in your use case? And the next question is that what technology are now using? So do you have any other technologies that you're now utilizing, or this is your first technology, your first step? So they need to understand what exactly they want to bring to their solution, to their service line using the edge AI. So first of all, it's a clarification.
Makes sense. And once you've clarified that, and there seems to be a use case, what are the usual expectations for AI at the edge? What is the kind of outcome that customers are looking for?
Mostly when people wants to have this edge AI use cases, they want to have first the more computation power and more AI related and AI compatible computation on the edge, first of
Mhm.
all. And the second of all is to reduce the latency for reaction inside the field that they are. If it's in the factory, if it's a robot, if it's a car. And the next step, they want to uh, uh, make more output and throughput when they are using these AI solutions. And the next one is to bring new use cases. So sometimes they don't have a specific use case in their field, in the factory, in their product line, but they want to bring more agility to their solution that they have.
Okay, so yeah, lower latency, bringing more smarts down there at the edge, generating these new use cases. Sometimes full business models, right? Sometimes they have model which is about building something as a manufacturer, but then suddenly they're thinking about, hey, can we add a service on top of that? Where customers are using our equipment so that we can sell them predictive maintenance, for example, this kind of things, right?
Exactly. So, one issue that most of these, industries and markets they face is that when they want to use this specific technology as edge AI, they don't understand the use case that they want to have, right?
Mhm.
So, when we are talking about the preventive maintenance, so we can implement this in different ways and different aspects. So we can rely only on the data, receive it, put it in the cloud, understand, okay, in 2 days it will be something will happen. But when you are in the field, you want to have the less response time and less reaction time. So you want to act immediately. So
Yeah.
you need to have this information on the edge, process it as fast as possible, and react. And as you mentioned, I think now we are talking about the retrofit solutions and how we can implement them. And we are going back to what I mentioned, that if there is any solution exist. So if they want to have this edge AI in addition to what they have, or they want to have something completely new.
hmm Yeah, brownfield versus greenfield, definitely. So this actually is a very practical point you're making with them, and that has to do with business considerations, with the business decision, right? Because it has an impact on an investment you need to make for an outcome or set of outcomes. Could be new business models, could be better efficiency, could be better quality, this kind of things. But what are the once again, was that business hat? What are the practical consideration that someone was making that business decision needs to take into account when going into edge AI?
Yeah. So when we are talking about the edge AI, I think we are now, I'm repeating myself, edge AI, edge AI, edge
Yeah.
AI. But we need to say that. And, the first thing is, when you remember that in the embedded world in Nuremberg, there were a lot of hardware providers which they claim that they can provide you the edge AI.
hmm
So in the first site, we can see that we need to take care of the hardware. And the hardware for the edge AI, it's not that cheap, it's expensive. So we need to understand, if because of the solution that we want to implement, what I would say profit this solution will bring for us, how much we will earn or not pay because of, for example, having this preventive maintenance. So it will affect the size, it will affect the battery consumption, it will affect the heat. So there is the series of things that we need to consider when we want to choose the right hardware.
hmm
The other thing is the right infrastructure. So this infrastructure can come from, I don't know, having the right camera, having the right connection. Is there any high-speed connection to the cloud to update these systems, sending the new models and algorithms? So this is really important to have that. The second one is the security. So you put the decision maker decision, I mean the effective part of your solution on the edge, and you
hmm
rely on that thing to do something. So based on that, you need to have the secure system that no one can hack it, because it has the first and in touching your solution. So it
Yeah.
needs to be completely secure. And again, we are coming back to what you mentioned, greenfield and brownfield. So do you have something that you want to add this AGI to it, or is something from the scratch? So consideration for implementing the solution is completely different. Maybe when you're doing something from the scratch, the initial investment is higher, but the longevity of the system will be higher as well because everything is completely in place. But when you're not making things from the scratch, then you need to adapt the current solution to your current system, which will be a bit risky.
Yeah, well, especially if you're trying to enhance or make more efficient an existing infrastructure and this an existing system or solution, you cannot always go greenfield. And from the investing perspective as well, right? So when we talk about manufacturing, for example, we're talking about equipment that is out there for the next 10, 20, 30 years sometimes. You can just like change everything overnight to your customers who have been investing a lot in buying your equipment. And even though you might want to create a new business model, it could be about maybe a renting model for customers to get the latest version of a device or a machine always. But definitely lots of considerations. One you didn't really mention, which is timing, right? Because we all want to be on market rapidly, but all the things you just mentioned will take not just money but time, right? You will need time to adapt the infrastructure to add the networking. Very often you don't have an existing networking. You have local bus communication eventually, but you don't have actual networking. You need to integrate OT and IT. You need to establish all your security policies and parameters. All of that will take a lot of time. And so that's something to take into account as well, right? Practically speaking.
Definitely. So I think time is equal to money and money is equal to time. So if we
Fair.
consider that we want to implement one solution for, I don't know, 3 years, we need to see, okay, if it's definitely technology will evolve in that duration, for example, for 3 years. So we need to consider how much the technology will be, outdated, and then we need to understand how much we need to invest and how much time we need to kind of wait for the solution to be implemented.
Yep.
Sometimes, as we discussed, I remember in Embedded World during one of the sessions, you remember that I mentioned it's really important that we need to see how mature is the technology that we want to utilize now. So maybe some companies they want to start and adapt to edge AI, and once they are ready to utilize that, they see that the technologies evolve and they can do it. I don't know, 10 times shorter in amount of time that they spent. But
Mhm.
definitely, it's really important the possibility of implementation. You need to see how feasible it is to even implement this infrastructure. As you mentioned, maybe you want to rent these resources. I saw companies that they are doing this equipment as a service. So I think in this kind of industry that we want to have, maybe it's a good idea that companies can provide these equipments and then they can replace them. It will be, I think, win-win for the both sides.
Yep, definitely. No, you're right. Um, Talking about the future, right? And this is certainly one of our like closing conversation here. I want you to put your technical hat a bit on, right? So we talked about feasibility, we talked about this kind of things. When we look at the buzz around AI, and when we looked at all the demos that we had at Embedded World, it felt like there was this race to the latest, GPU or NPU, and you needed to have new hardware to run AI at the edge. And the question to you is from your perspective, technology ready? Is the hardware ready? Is the software ready? Are we ready to bring AI on critical systems in general? What is your take on that?
So, we discussed about the security,
Hmm.
right? So we need to see when we are utilizing this kind of hardware, first of all, how secure they are. So, that, for example, in the open source environment, we know that there is a lot of possibilities to implement. What sometimes the companies are considering and worrying about the security as well, because the technology is always evolving. When we are utilizing, I don't know, between CPU, GPU, and NPUs, we need to understand, especially our solution that we want to implement. 100% we cannot implement any edge AI with only NPU or only GPU or only CPU, because it should be some heterogeneous solution that all these things need to be put together.
Hmm.
And with regards to the technology being ready, I believe, as I mentioned, because of the initial investment, now sometimes it's hard for smaller companies to have these solutions. in place, because as we discuss again, managing this field is really expensive. So for example, if you have 100 of these devices, you need to update them, you need to check what they can do, you need to see the model is updated or not, and then all these things, it's really hard for small companies to do that. So first we need to see how this AGI can help us. If it's something really considerable, definitely they need to invest. But in my point of view, most of the companies, they need to wait a bit to see what the others will do, how this edge AI hardwares can evolve, can be optimized in the power consumption, in the cost, and in the size, and then they can move forward. However, I think it's good to study how we can utilize edge AI from today.
Okay, so it's kind of ready, but and you should still be a little bit in a wait and see position. But we need innovators. We need people to jump in to start the wheel, right? To start the engine, so that others can then benefit from the experience that it went through, right? So awesome, Mahmoud. That was like very insightful. One last question for you. You are, as you mentioned, a technologist, so you're excited about technology in general. You try to be practical about it.
Yeah.
But what is it that excites you the most when it comes to after Edge AI, right? So Edge AI is the next big step, bringing AI to the edge of these devices. Is like, for example, quantum computing something you see happening at the edge or complementing AI?
I believe so. I remember that 7 years ago we were discussing about edge computing. So edge computing were only about reducing the delay and also bringing this usage of bringing down the usage of bandwidth, and also bringing this green computing to the servers that we need to kind of offload all these processes to the edge. But what I see now, it's there is a lot of potential to utilizing the quantum computing on the edge, because when we are talking about NPUs and GPUs, quantum computing can cover both, but it's not feasible yet to have this. And when we are looking at 7 years ago, 5 years ago, even having the NPU and GPUs weren't that possible from that time. So I think and I hope and I'm sure kind of that maybe in 2 3 years we can have these qubits in the edge, which will bring a lot of more use cases for us, and it will be a revolution, I believe, in the edge AI and edge computing, and maybe it will be, I don't know, quantum on the edge. Yeah,
We'll
it can
see.
be the new name.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's going to be the quantum edge show that we're going to go with. We'll see. For now, we're
Yeah.
talking about IoT a lot, and for the right reasons, because it's here, it's pervasive, it's behind all these technologies. IoT powers edge AI in many ways. Anyways,
Exactly.
Mahmoud, thanks a lot for your time today. I really appreciate your perspective on your objective and practical perspective on edge AI. And everyone, thanks for tuning in for the IoT show. See you soon.
Thank you.